Welcome back to Guts and Grind. Thank you for watching. Thank you for clicking. I'm here with Siji Koshi. Siji, what's up, man?
Nothing much, my brother.
Awesome. This week, we had our first live interview with one of our guests, and our guest is Paul Mathew. He is a wealth of knowledge. He had so much to share about the mortgage industry and that kind of facet of real estate, which is awesome to hear, because when you're in one world, you have to realize there's other parts to the puzzle that you need, and he really gave a lot of insight. Siji, do you have any feelings or thoughts about today's episode?
Dude, I was super excited about this one. This one was it hit home because, like Saj said, we are together in the studio, the three of us recording it, and actually in person, right? So it was an awesome experience. Felt like I was on a real podcast, And so that element was a huge piece of it. But then the other piece of it also is like Saad said, Paul, even though he's had very little exposure in the mortgage industry, he is crushing it. Yeah. The guy is hungry. You could tell the amount of drive he has to get more and more exposure, learn more, want to grow more. If you guys listen to this episode, you'll kind of feel that in this guy and where he's kind of headed. And I think he's going to go do great big things. He has a family. He's balancing family, balancing work, making money, raising a 2-year-old, you name it. I mean, it's crazy, but it's going to be a really good one. I'm totally stoked for it.
No, same here, man. Like you were saying, he hasn't been in the game for that long, but he's been super effective at the time that he has been. So you could only see bigger and better things for him in the future. And the fact that he's balancing all these stuff, it's just crazy. It's awesome. So, I don't want to keep talking about it. Let's just dive into the show. Enjoy.
You're listening to Guts and Grind with Siju and Sajin, making the real estate journey accessible to anyone.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of Guts and Grind. Really appreciate you joining us. Today, we're going to dive right into it. We got Paul Mathew. Paul, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Paul Mathew, owner of TMT Mortgage, helping all of Texas with their mortgage needs.
Nice.
That is awesome, man. TMT.
Yeah.
What does it stand for? Where did you come up with it? Give us the whole story.
Yeah. I was thinking of something catchy, something, that's cool. That made sense. My last name is Mathew, TMT, the Mathew team. Yeah, that was it. That's how we came up with that. Yeah.
Nice.
I wanted to ask you, give us a little background on how you got started in the game. What's your background? How did you start out in the career world, first of all, and then how did you transition into real estate?
Of course, yeah. So I'm a supply chain operations guy. Went to U of H. I did my over a decade in oil and gas in the corporate side of the world. Did that for a while, at Shell, good gig. Can't complain, I had paternity leave and all that good stuff. Yeah. But something was missing. I felt like, I can use my knowledge in that space and use it towards something else. So with my operational background, the mortgage side, I said it's something I just stumbled upon. Had no intentions of ever getting into it, but I always knew it was, something in relation to real estate. And mortgage is the way, it took me, and here I am.
So let me ask, you're saying you had a good job.
Yeah.
Everything was good.
Yeah.
There was no issues at the job.
No.
And so, and I'm assuming it's a good paying job.
Of course.
But you still decided to walk away.
I did.
That feels scary.
It is.
Because I also know in your personal life, you have 3 kids.
Yep.
You're married, all that good stuff. So what did that look like in your mind as far as making that decision? Because that's not a easy thing that you could just say, oh, something's missing and I'm just going to try this out. Unpack that a little bit for us.
Yeah, it was not easy, right? Because Shell is an amazing company, and no knock to the corporate world, it's amazing. So that decision was not easy at all because, I had 2 kids and I had just gotten a promotion. So I had just came back from a paternity leave.
Wow.
So, you don't get that, everywhere. 401k, all the good stuff, right? So making that jump was not easy at all. But, I have my wife, she's a nurse. She has a very stable job. So I told her, hey, if this doesn't work out, we have you. And then obviously, I have, decade of experience. If I ever wanted to get back into it, the corporate world is not going anywhere.
Right.
So, there was a little bit of, but, I never wanted to fall back on that. So this was kind of just jumping right in and just figuring it out.
You've been in the mortgage game for what, like a year, you said?
Yeah.
And I'm seeing you on social media. You're killing it. You're closing a bunch of deals.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm sure it didn't start off that way, right?
No.
And so when you were starting off in that career, especially letting go from a solid, walking away from a solid paying job and, all the benefits and stuff like that, what was your game plan? Well, first, the mindset of what was the trigger that made you say, I need to do it?
When during the pandemic, everybody was working from home. So when they started pulling people back into the office, and I saw how much time I was, staying away from home with the kids and all that. And with the little ones, time goes by so fast They sleep early. I'm out the house early in the morning. Something didn't make sense. I was like, I need to be in something that I can, spend more time with the kids and just be there and be more active with them. So that was, one of the biggest drivers for me to kind of, let go of that 9 to 5. And obviously, the work-life balance obviously have to make sense. Having your own business is so different.
Yeah.
But I have that flexibility. I don't need to pick up a call if I don't want to. I don't need to
Sure.
report to anybody if I don't want to. I don't miss a whole lot of calls, mind you. But
Sure, yeah.
if I needed that flexibility, if I needed to, say I'm taking a day off, just hang out with my kids.
Right.
I have that flexibility. So.
Would you say that was the reason why, like, was it mainly flexibility? Was it mainly I want to be able to call my shots, but I'm still going to be diligent on top of like, because when you're running your own business, it's more than a 9 to 5,
of course,
right?
Yep.
You do have flexibilities within the day, but it is definitely a lot of work, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so
the kids was a big driver. Also something that felt fulfilling, and just doing it on your own, it's a different ball game. When you're your own boss, every decision you make, every money you make, every deal you lose, everything falls on you, and it gives you a little bit more motivation and a little bit more drive to kind of make it happen.
I think you hit it really on the nail. I mean, obviously, you always have something to fall back on. Going from a corporate world, I think that's the mindset I think a lot of people should have is, hey, listen, you're working a 9 to 5 anyway, normally. So let's just say you get out, you want to try in real estate or whatever your passion is, right? You can always go back to that role because you have the work experience and that kudos to you for having that mindset to say, hey, if this doesn't work out for whatever reason, wife, if it doesn't work out, I can go back and get a full-time job, right?
Right.
So,
the thing is, I didn't think too much of that though, because I knew, because you naturally, you're always, when you're doing something unknown, you always want to, feel that comfort.
Yeah.
And this is obviously starting a business that's not comfortable at all. So, I tried to tell myself, well, let's keep that, backup plan like far in the back.
Sure.
Let's not, bring it up, because the more you think about it, the more, it starts to make sense. You're like, oh, what are you doing?
Yeah, why not go back?
Yeah, why not go back? So I kept that far away, and I'm happy I did.
On the same token, like you said earlier, like having Lydia with the job and knowing that there was stability there, so you have that flexibility to actually say, let's try something new, right? Because it's dangerous to be going out there. Like if she was a stay-at-home mom and you're like, well, let me just try it. And there's a lot of people that do that.
Right.
And they succeed. And it's like one of those things where if you don't have a safety net, you just cannot fail.
Right.
And so there is something to say about that, but I like your approach way better.
Oh, yeah.
Like knowing that like, hey, let's not fall back on this, go back to the corporate 9 to 5 job, but we still have that safety net of someone having a full-time job.
Exactly.
it's a calculated risk. Just like real estate. I say, what we say and preach on this podcast is the same thing. Listen, there's risk in everything you do.
Of course, absolutely.
I mean, the latest was, people that passed away out of the Titanic, going to go see the Titanic, right? But what's funny is the owner was on that ship and he said, hey, listen, there's risk in everything you do. You wake up in the morning, if you don't decide to get out of bed, there's risk in that. If there's risk in you getting up out of bed, there's risk in you walking outside of your house.
Exactly.
Right. So it's finding that balance and, you have to kind of see, hey, what drives you?
Right.
And then you obviously know that, freedom is definitely a lot for you. So that's, I think, the mindset of a lot of people post-COVID. So good stuff with that. But how did you get started in the whole mortgage side of the business? I mean, what drove you to the mortgage side?
Yeah. So, I obviously, got a house and, went through the mortgage process and saw a lot of inefficiencies, a lot of gaps. And, me coming from an operational background, supply chain background.
Sure.
It's, drilled into my head, look for inefficiency, try to find a way and make it better. Try to do cost savings, all of that, is drilled into my brain from, my educational and my work experience.
Sure.
So I was like, you know what? I think I can take that to this whole mortgage space. And, just thinking back to when I bought the house, some of the questions that I had, how lost I was.
Right.
I was like, I can actually make a difference in somebody's shopping experience.
Oh,
You know what I'm saying? So not only that, I can save the money. I can explain things to them the way I wanted to explain to me.
Right.
Not very, like high level where it makes no sense to them. So I purchased and then refinanced and still had no idea, like prepaids, right? Like why am I paying insurance for the full year?
Right.
And I'm getting escrowed for it. And like, I had no idea. Like I never thought about it. I just like, okay, I guess this is something that, something people do until I started, reviewing like a disclosure.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is it. You won't believe it. Like 90% of the questions that people have when we, go through our closing disclosures is, hey, this insurance, why am I seeing it up here for a whole year? And then why am I seeing it again, for the 3 months, in escrow? And I'm like, wow, it's it's crazy that, such a small thing can confuse people.
Yeah.
Being able to explain that and, that aha moment, right?
How did you make that process easy? So yeah, I agree with you. If you go through a closing process, if you're a newbie, it's
Dude, it's
over
tough.
your
Yeah,
head.
it is.
Dude, not even a newbie. Like I have multiple houses, right?
Right,
Because
yeah.
we have real estate. Every time I'm still like, I just trust y'all.
Right.
Because I want to close the deal. In my mind, I'm like, all right, let's just get to the finish line.
Of course.
And so sometimes you just overlook certain things. As long as the numbers still make sense and you can make your money,
Right.
it's all good.
Right.
But yeah, but, you're saying-
Even the documentation is evolving, right?
Yeah.
Through COVID, there was even new documentation
Yeah.
that you had to sign off, that you still have a job, and there's a
Oh,
bunch
yeah.
of stuff that's changing, right? So how did you make it easier did you have a team that explained all this stuff to them, or did you have a documentation that said, hey, these are the most common used
Yeah.
words,
Right.
or like what they
So,
mean?
It's not easy at all, right? A combination of a few things. So I work with a few lenders, and they have strong account executives on board, and I utilize them. Like when I tell you I utilize them, I've called my guy Ron Bacos, UWM, on Saturday 10 p.m.
Oh, wow.
And he's opened up that line to me.
Oh, wow.
He's amazing. That lender's amazing, and he's told me, look, man, and I know you're new to the game, so if you have any questions, call me whenever. And it's saved deals because a lot of business happens on the weekends where
Yeah.
people need pre-approvals. And in the market that we're in, every day matters.
Sure.
Getting an offer in, making sure somebody's pre-approved the right way. So I rely on people like him. Obviously the internet has so much
Sure.
information. Do my own research, prior experiences, putting it all together, just finding that right combination.
That's awesome. Like, I did want to ask, like, because there's a lot of tangible steps that you have to take to get to where you're at now, right? And so if you're not in the mortgage world in the beginning,
Yeah.
have you ever had experience in the mortgage world before?
A little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a few months, but nothing too drastic. I think it takes about a year or two to kind of fully grasp,
Sure.
our role. But I'm still learning. There's still so much to be.
Right, but I guess what I'm trying to get at is, who did you rely on to get the information? Like, how did you even know how to start a mortgage company? If you came from supply chain and stuff like that. So, like, what were the steps in that?
So there were a few people, that I reached out to personally, a couple of brokers around town. I had a guy that worked with me at Shell who became a loan officer and then eventually started his own shop. And I knew, a couple of mutual friends around town, Ebby Abraham with First Step Mortgage, I believe that's the company.
Oh, yeah, we know. Yeah, I know Abby. Yeah.
Amazing guy, man. I worked with his brother,
Okay.
Jibby, at Shell. I had no idea Ebby was his brother. I met him on social media. I just messaged him. I was like, hey, you're in the mortgage industry.
Right.
Let's grab lunch. And then Amir Ali, he's another guy that I work with at Shell.
Okay.
I reached out to him. I was like, hey, man, all great guys. So
Yeah.
in this industry, what I've learned is there are people that are, willing to just sit down and talk to you.
That's
and I was like, hey, I'm new to the game. Tell me what you did.
Yeah.
Tell me how you set your shop up. And they were, and a couple hours at lunch. All I did was have to pay for either their coffee or their lunch, and just got a wealth of information.
Sure.
But just kind of put that in and just kind of went with the flow.
Man, that's awesome, man. I always say like that's the other thing too. Like, I mean, if you're trying to get something out of somebody, hey, say, hey, dude, I'll pay for your lunch. I'll take you out. I want to take off all the information that you can learn, right?
Yeah.
And it's so valuable because especially if you're trying to break into something like that, it's key. I assume you had to get a license for this, right? Did you go into school for that, or did you have to kind of get classes and kind of get licensed on that?
Yeah, so you have to take a certain amount of hours you have to do.
Yeah.
And then you have to take an exam. And then once you pass that, you can get your loan officer license. And then with your license, you can start your brokerage shop.
Oh, wow.
So it's not like real estate where you have to work with somebody, I think close a certain amount of transactions or something like that.
Right.
To be a broker. The mortgage space, you can just jump right in as long as you get your loan officer license. I mean, obviously, the fear is for the most people, like, how do I start my business, right? It's easy for somebody to go work as a loan officer for somebody.
Yeah.
Right.
You just need to pass the exam for that. But then the next step is to obviously be a broker within that. And then so I can have loan officers work for me. I can sponsor them in that capacity.
It's really cool to see the process because, like, I think in anything that you get into, whether it is like real estate investing, being a realtor, being a mortgage broker, anything like that, like, it's always like, what is that first step?
Yeah.
And I love the fact that it was community that was kind of like, we got to reach out to people to figure out, like, how does the cow eat the cabbage? Like, I mean, because really, when you don't know, you just don't know.
Right.
I did want to ask, because there's a lot of facets to real estate, and it seemed like question one is like, why real estate specifically?
Yeah.
And then how did you hone into just mortgage? Because like, there's like title companies,
Right.
could be a realtor. There's a lot of different
Insurance.
Yeah, there's so many different ways. So like, was there a thought process of how'd you filter down to that?
I knew that, the mortgage space obviously is a lot of financial stuff, right? It's numbers, so I like to think I'm a numbers guy, Excel, breaking down certain things. And that's what I did, prior to this.
Right.
So that's what made the most sense to me in the mortgage world. So there are cash buyers that don't use, obviously, brokers. There's no need for that. But majority of the buyers need a mortgage. So, I just use that as a reason to, just hone in on this and just go with it.
It was just really like, I have expertise in numbers and stuff like that, and so you just kind of divvy it up that way. That makes sense.
And it's easier to find a process, build a system out. I felt like, more in the mortgage world than, probably real estate. Or I mean, I might be missing something. Somebody may come back and say, no, that's not true. Somebody else in the real estate side,
sure.
But for me, it was more of, like a systematic approach. I can take this and, take it through these processes and maybe fix these things and,
sure.
Be more efficient, save more money, whatever the scenario is. So
yeah, but the other thing I was going to say is it's interesting how you went the mortgage route. Just like realtors, I know you have to build a customer base, right? Like you have to start getting, your clientele, and it's really, if it's not online marketing, it's referral based. Like you obviously, if you don't get customers, you're not going to get paid, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
And you said you have a company. Explain, what your marketing strategies are, especially in this now social media era. We see you all over the place, I mean, and you're closing stuff, which is good, and I want to kind of, dive into, hey, how has that benefited you, and how do you kind of build your business, especially somebody being new, right?
Oh yeah, of course. So it's so crazy, right? I tell you, the easiest way for anybody is to go to an open house, right? Oh. So the house across the street from me, there was an open house, like one of the first weeks, right? Yeah. It went on sale. I saw the sign. I knew the owners, so I went over and talked to them. They're like, "Oh yeah, we're having an open house this weekend." So what I literally did was just play with my kid outside. Whenever a car pulls up, I just went up to, "Hey, you guys, have a pre-approval?" Like, if they say no, I was like, "Oh, here, So I have one of those oval cards. This thing is so cool. You have it's one of those,
nice, yeah.
So it's quick. They scan it. They can get my information. They can share their information with me to the
brilliant.
email.
Yeah.
And boom, so I have their information.
That is so smart.
I'll send you the link to my application. Kind of hit them with a couple of things that captures their attention. Oh, these are the rates for today.
Right.
So let's talk. Nothing too crazy.
Right. Right.
So out
seed.
of like 5 people that went to that house, there was and it started raining. Oh. And this guy, he pulled in. He wanted to go see the house. He ran in with his daughter while it was raining. I didn't even have time to scan my card. So he just, as he was walking away from me, shouted out his number. Said, "Hey, just text me." Shouted out. So he went in, and then I went back inside. Texted him, say, "Hey, this is Paul, TMT Mortgage. Let me know if you have any questions." And he turned into a client.
No way.
Yeah. He didn't end up buying that house. He ended up buying another house in the neighborhood.
Sure.
Yeah.
But he ended up being a client because it was,
That's awesome.
like he saw the value.
That's hustler mentality, man. That's like the grind that I like to hear about. Because,
I love it. Yeah.
That's guts and grind.
That's the grind and guts and grind, right?
Right.
It's like being creative now. Like, I mean, I tell my kids this, like, I mean, long gone are the days outside of your typical trade shop works,
Sure,
right? I mean, you have to be like so creative to like generate business for whatever you want to do, whatever your passion is. Like you have to build your own brand.
Right. Sure.
And when I see you, I think about the mustache and everything. I'm like, dude, like that's a brand, right? And then and people find that and they say, "Oh, Paul, the guy with the mustache."
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I've had a couple guys that's like, "Oh yeah, there's this guy with the mustache. He's been killing it with the mortgages." I'm like, "Oh yeah, Paul."
People are really, they're saying the muscles.
Oh man,
That's a different name.
The muscly mustache.
muscle mustache. Huh? Oh, I thought about shaving it off, and I think my cousin, I just talked to him. I was like, "Man, I might shave the mustache." He's like, "No, man, that's your trademark.
You can't
Absolutely.
now."
It's like you're known for it.
Yeah.
You can't do it, man. That's
shout out to my brother Joe for he's the OG. He has, I don't know if you guys seen him. He has a nice mustache game.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Inspiration.
That's good, man. Yeah, dude. So evolving from that. So you've started your own company. How did you? I assume you have people working for you. So how did you kind of move that next step and move the company on?
Yeah, so there's a team that helps me with the processing side. So they do some of the paperwork and all that, but majority of it is done solo, like by myself, right?
Wow.
So it's getting to the point where I'm thinking about like the marketing side of the things. What do you go, like a transaction coordinator? That helps me, like schedules, because sometimes it's. Like I ended up at the wrong title company for a close.
Oh no!
They switched to the last minute. So those are, those are minor things in like the operational side that again, a lot of mortgage guys don't go to the closings. Right. I make it a habit to go to the closings because there's tons of value there.
Even the value, even being like the TMT that you make. Right. And like it's just a marketing tool for yourself, right?
Of course, absolutely.
Like I think it's awesome. It's a smart move to be involved, and as you grow, you could change things up, right? But since you're still in the first year, it's very impressive. It's like just from the outside looking in, I'm like, man, it's like you're really making moves.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that. Aside from the whole marketing side of things, I remember when I had my closing, there was some, I had no idea what was going on in the back end, but now I know because I have the lender that I use for my house. I do business with them as well.
Oh,
and their process is a little different. So you have to get the authorization to disperse, to get the keys and all that. So at that time, I had no idea what was going on. But,
Right.
you know, me being there at the closings, I'm monitoring my emails. I'm telling, you know, sometimes the title companies, I have to go back and say, hey, guys, you know, they're needing some documents. Can you guys, you know, get on the ball? And, you know, kind of keeping my buyers, my clients happy.
Sure.
Hey, you know, we'll be done in about 5-10 minutes. Just kind of hang out. And just, you know, being there for them. I think, you know, if you know, look at my Google reviews, you know, it's
Right.
53 as of yesterday, I think. 5-star reviews.
Nice.
You know, nothing negative. So I
Right.
think, you know, me being there, me picking up the phones, being available on the weekends, it's all value add
Yeah.
that I think it's, you know, it's needed in this.
I think so. With that said, talking about work-life balance,
Yeah.
do you feel like now you have a year under your belt?
Yeah.
Do you feel like, man, I'm working way more with this mortgage company, but it's lighter? It feels light, or is it like, oh no, corporate was actually not so bad? Like, what's your feelings on that? Like,
So certain days, you know, it goes back and forth, right?
Sure.
When things are going good, I'm like, oh, this is amazing. So I guess on the grand scheme of things, even though, I mean, the work is more for sure.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a lot of pressure because I can, you know, affect somebody's, you know, future, right? If
Sure.
things don't go well, they didn't close on time, it's a bad experience. So many things can happen. So from that angle, there's a lot of pressure. But if you ask me, you know, the overall feel of it, I think this is amazing because there's a sense of accomplishment. I feel like I'm actually making an impact in
Yeah.
somebody's life.
no, it's
And,
true.
you know, going back, and sometimes I just sit there and, you know, read some of the reviews that people left. And
Yeah.
I'm like, man, that's crazy. And I think back on how I affected their, like, you know, impacted their lives.
Right.
You know, it makes sense. But, you know, going back to your other question, yeah, there are certain days I'm like, oh boy, you know, I wish I can go back to that 9 to 5, you know,
Right,
when things
right.
aren't going good. Or,
Sure, sure.
Underwriting, you know, questions come. I'm like, oh, well, how do we navigate through this scenario? You
Yeah.
know? But I think, you know, I take the 90-10 rule.
Mm-hmm.
If it's good 90% of the time, that, you know, other 10% doesn't really matter.
Not a big deal, right? Yeah.
That's great, dude. I mean, it's understanding what your balance is, and you're just starting out, right? Building a business is going to be a grind. Nobody said it's not going to be, right? Hopefully, the goal is you get it up there, and then you plateau out. You get the right people under you. You get people to kind of help run your business, right? And it'll kind of flow. Speak a little bit about the mindset of your wife whenever you were kind of transitioning into this thing. You had to explain, hey, this is a whole new industry. You didn't have a crazy background in real estate, but obviously you're giving up your 9 to 5. If that was me, you know, my wife will chin check me a couple times. She was like, "What are you doing?" You know.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's kind of be cool to kind of hear like that perspective. You know.
Of course, yeah. It hasn't been easy, right? From all angles, because we just had our third baby back in November of last year.
Right.
So I remember, I made sure to pack my laptop with me when we went to the delivery.
Oh,
Because I was like, I'm going to be here. I can pump out some emails, after the baby's born, everybody's sleeping. So that was my mindset.
Sure.
And I think there are moments where 3 kids under 4 years old it's insane, right? The household, because somebody's always crying.
Sure.
But my wife holds it down. She understands that it takes a lot. You have to be on, right?
Yeah.
Because there are clients calling, asking questions, realtors calling, title companies.
Right.
So you just have to be on most of the times, and it takes a lot of mental capacity to kind of handle the work stuff.
Right.
Sometimes if I'm not able to get out in time for dinner or bath time or something like that, she's there, holding it down.
Wow.
And then she understands that I that's what she needs to do to kind of make the success happen.
Yeah, as you grow, right?
As
like
you grow,
it's
exactly.
not like a forever thing, but
No,
it's like,
no,
hey,
right.
but like in this growing phase. And
Absolutely.
so was there convincing that you had to do, or was this like, hey man, we don't know what we're walking into. Let's see what happens. So like what did that look like, or what's your thoughts on that?
So there's a little bit of convincing because obviously it's a risk
Sure.
with the baby on the way, and there's a lot of question marks and things like that. But we both felt like it's a risk worth taking.
Oh, that's good.
And I think my vision, when I shared it with her, she's like, "Wow, that's I think I can get behind that."
Oh, good.
So yeah, it was she was on board rather quickly, and yeah.
I mean, that's good because like I know a lot of people, and like typically the people that are watching this are mainly like investing into real estate, but there's convincing that needs to be done in there as well, right? As far as like, how do I convince my spouse, whether it's the husband or wife, like, because it's a big commitment, right? Like I want to take a chunk of money, I want to put it into this investment, and then just see what happens, right? And so like it's kind of nice to hear what the process looks like. I did have a question while you were talking. Where does your majority of your business come from? Like, is it just individuals that you're seeking out? Are you tying in with title companies, other mortgage companies? Like what does that look like? And
Realtors.
Like, realtors.
that could
Like
be.
what does that look like? And how do you reach out to people for business?
Right. So it's majority is realtors. Realtors and open houses like direct clients. Title company not so much, even though there are a few that have planted some seeds. So it's about building the trust.
Right.
So the biggest thing is obviously realtors, if they've seen a successful transaction, smooth, you're available to pick up the calls. They'll test you out and then, maybe send you another file. It's go well again. They're like, okay, cool. I can put you on my list, of my preferred lenders.
Right.
So you build that relationship up with them. And then, going to open houses because I'm right there next to the consumer.
Oh, wow.
So people, I never went to an open house when I was not buying a house. So I think most of the people that are out in these open houses are, somewhere along the way planning on buying a house.
Sure, yeah.
So it's, so I make sure I dress up and make sure I go and make an impression so they can remember me, whenever the time is right.
Yeah.
And then I keep a database of all the people that I've met, following up with them, checking in. Hey, you guys need any help? Any pre-approvals? How's the shopping going? Simple text. A couple of months, they ghost me and then I kind of stop it, right?
Sure.
I get the point, maybe they already bought the house.
Right.
But, if I get 1 out of, 10 people, I'll take that as a win.
So how do you do it? So do you just kind of go to, hey, these are the open houses in the neighborhood, and then just get your daughter dressed up a little bit and be like, hey, let's go mortgage shopping, add that layer on.
Yeah.
I mean, they explain what do you look for open houses in the neighborhood, or do you kind of search hard, or what's the method on that?
Yeah, so luckily most of the open houses happen during the nap time for the kids. So that's the perfect
key.
time for me
That
to put them down for a quick nap. And it's only a couple hours, so I step away. So no, I don't take my daughter with me.
Right.
But
that's a closer, man. That's the real closer.
Yeah. She's the closer, man.
But the strategies. So I live in Richmond, in Aliana, and that neighborhood is hot. So just down the street from me, there were 2 houses. There's 2 sisters that live back to back.
Oh.
They both moved to Colorado. So I saw the for sale sign coming up. I saw I looked on HAR, saw the open house coming up this weekend. I'll tell you, it was like a block party. There were at least 27 families that I met that weekend.
Wow.
So I wasn't even planning on going to the open house. I was playing outside with my kids, I was in shorts, and t-shirt.
Right.
I was like, I'm gonna go check out the house because it was a nice house. And I was like, I just want to go see it. Went, stopped by, and met man, it was crazy. And then people started asking questions. I mean, once they found out, I know some of the rates and things like that.
Oh, sure.
They overhear things. They come in, hey, so I'll pass out the cards and started talking. And it's crazy. Out of I think all the families that I met, the one person that reached out, got a pre-approval from me, ended up going under contract on one of the houses.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
It was amazing. Yeah. So I was like, the odds of that happening is great. But again, it's a numbers game, right? The more you do, the more you increase your chances and your odds. So.
What percentage of that is return business? Do you see a lot of? I mean, I'm sure it's still too early, but do they refer you to a lot of people? Do you get a lot of referrals based on that experience? Because I assume it's such a customer service detailed business, right? Like if you're hand holding the buyer so well to the point where they understand everything, closing went on time perfectly, and they're like, Paul's a man, please use me. Do you get a lot from the kickbacks from the referrals on that? Because usually you buy a house, you're not going to move 5-10 years, right? So or unless they're investors, right?
But to couple on that, it's a painful process. The mortgage side, to be honest, it's a very painful, because there's a lot of documentation, there's a lot of stuff. And so I could see how someone would, oh, Paul did an amazing job. This worked out so well for me, because how bad it can be.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've talked to people, just through this industry, and I've seen great stories, and I've heard people I'll never do it again, to the point where I'll never move again. Yeah. I don't even want to move again because the experience was so bad,
Of course.
But yeah, so I don't want to hijack the question.
Yeah, do you bounce a lot off of referrals, or what percentage of that do you get referrals back?
So referrals is huge.
Yeah.
And that kind of proves to you you did a hell of a job with that client, because they referred you to their daughter or their family friend, somebody, right?
Yeah.
So that's key. And again, the return customers, not so much, because people just bought a house a year ago or not probably gonna move. But I do have clients that still text me, hey, what are the rates doing now? Are we ready for a refinance?
Oh, yeah.
That business is coming. Right?
I do that a lot. Yeah.
So that business is coming. So that's happening. And then realtors, right? They saw hey, you handle this very well. People that got rejected multiple times. I had a guy, I think the day before he was supposed to close, he found out he didn't qualify.
Oh, no.
So his realtor, Salman Tajani, with the Nimesh Patel Group.
Oh, yeah.
Reached out. He's like, hey, man, I got this situation. What can you do?
Right.
I was like, well, let's give it a go and see what happens. Right?
Yeah.
I never say no to anybody.
Yeah, Sure.
I was like, it's a challenge. Let's take it up and see where it goes.
Yeah.
What's the worst that can happen?
Absolutely.
Right.
So we took the file through, and I think in 7 to 14 days, we had the clear to close.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
So we transferred the appraisal over, took it through underwriting. And it's about, spending the time
Yeah.
in a file, understanding what is it going on, understanding what the underwriters are asking for, and then being able to put those two together.
Yeah.
See, can you supply these documents? And
Yeah.
for his scenario, he told me, he's like, man, the processor never even asked me for these documents. Maybe they just didn't know.
Right.
So that lack of knowledge, maybe they just didn't care.
Yeah.
Putting those together, we were able to close them. And, so stuff like that, helps quite a bit.
That's huge. I did a property in Michigan like 6 months ago or something like that. And they were very nice.
Yeah.
They're all very nice. But like last minute, they're like, oh, by the way, we need this now. And I'm all like, I gave you. It was to the point where I'm like, I know I gave this to you. And so I'm shuffling through stuff. So it makes a difference when you know that someone's on top of their stuff and taking care of things. I had a question about, like, you said that, you follow up with your clients and things like that. What systems do you use? Are there programs that you use to follow up with clients? And like, are you doing that with the refinance stuff? Like, oh, I have this list of clients that I've closed with 6 months later, or like, oh, rates are dropping. Do you reach out to them? Like, what does that look like? What kind of programs you might use? Like, what is that?
Yeah, so there's CRM systems that we utilize. There's loan operating or LOS systems that we use, and then a lot of manual work still, right? Because I'm still trying to, it's so early in the game that I haven't figured out what the right approach is for something like that, because I haven't done the refinance boom just yet. But there's an understanding of what rates they closed at around a certain while ago,
right?
And what it needs to for them to refinance, what would make sense. Some of it is still in my head, right?
Yeah.
So I know, like, when the rates get to like a 5.5%, 4%,
right,
or 4, climbing up down to the 4s,
right,
that'd be a good time to kind of go back and feel for who all I closed, reach out to them and present that opportunity. And I have clients that reach out to me, and that's one thing I've told them. Look, if I don't reach out to you, doesn't mean that you don't reach out to me.
Right.
Anytime you need. So I have clients that closed 5-6 months ago that text me out of the blue, hey, what are the rates today?
Right.
Yeah. And it takes me like 2 minutes to tell them, hey, this is what the rates are.
Right.
And then, obviously I don't remember what they closed at.
Sure.
But I ask them, like, hey, what was the rate we closed you on? And,
right.
They'll tell you if I'm on the road or something. They tell me.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh yeah, not yet. Let's wait, a little bit longer. I think the opportunity will come. So it's just simple as just being available to answer those questions.
That's invaluable. Yeah. Especially like when you're an investor. Like, I don't know about you, but I know you do it too. Like, I'm reaching out to my mortgage, like the mortgage company, saying beep, once I know it's dropping.
What's the rate?
Yeah, what's the rate? Right. Like, let us know. Like, because I know, like, if it's 2 points from when I closed from, oh, it's worth it. You know what I mean? Like, let's close and drop it, and it makes me more profitable too, right? Like, that's a.
I don't even type it out anymore. I just say WTR.
Yeah.
What's the rate?
What the rate?
WTR.
What the rate is, fool?
No, that's good, man. So I want to kind of shift a little bit to, what does it look like? What's the 1 to 3 year look like for you? I don't like to do the 5 to 10 year. I like to say, hey, what's the short term, right? I always tell my wife, I'm like, dude, I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow, but what's from a business perspective, mortgage wise, the next 1 to 3 years, what's the plan look like? I mean, is it just to kind of stay and grow, or is it shift to something else, or explain a little bit of that?
I don't have a blueprint for that. I'm still figuring that out, right?
Yeah.
But I do know in the coming future, I need to, pull in some loan officers under
Oh,
me.
really?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, the biggest thing was setting up, the system well enough to where somebody else can just come in, plug and play, and just be successful.
Nice.
Right? Because I can't capture all the volume,
Sure.
So bringing in somebody else to do that with me is going to extend our reach. And, being able to offer the same level of service that I can, I know it's going to be a challenge, but, I think that's the goal in the near future.
Sorry to interrupt you, but so do you see the workflow coming down to that point where I'm like, oh, I need another Paul. I need like a duplicate of me to fill in the gaps. Like it's already that
So
the flow's running.
Bringing in a loan officer, it's more, it's different, right? They're not going to be doing anything I do, but they can go out there and get their own business.
I get it.
But man, if I can duplicate myself, that'll be a game changer, right? So yes, that is also a plan.
I see. Okay.
I'm also always looking for, whenever I'm talking to somebody, I meet a transaction coordinator from the real estate side. I'm like, I wonder if she'll be good in, coming in and, doing some of the operational stuff.
Sure.
Or maybe even getting out and doing some business development.
Yeah.
So I'm always keeping my eyes open, options open.
Yeah.
And absolutely, man. When the time is right, I think that's going to happen also.
You said something earlier about, I have everything in my head. Yeah. You sound like me, because that used to be me. That's still me, actually. And then I tell my wife, I'm like, dude, it's in this bear trap right here. It's closed shut,
It's safe.
And she's like, no, that thing is leaking. And it is. As I'm getting older, I'm like, dude, I'm losing it, right? So, but no, dude, definitely get all your contacts, all that stuff in order. And I think one of the things I'm slowly learning is like to, standardize your business, right? Sure. Like make the processes. I think Saj kind of mentions it a lot. It's, you have this business, you've grown to a certain extent. And if you can to copy a Paul is to basically put it on paper, right? That's what chefs do today. It's like, hey, listen, they make this beautiful steak,
Of course.
right? And they can't keep cooking 1,000 steaks. They put that thing on paper to X amount of teaspoons of salt and pepper on it. You know, it needs to be on there so Sajin can make that steak right behind me. So I'm learning it myself too. Is like, hey, operationalize it. You know, make a plan out of this stuff. And
I'm a
so
huge
important.
advocate of systems. Like systems is everything, right?
Absolutely.
Like, and I'm not great at it, but like as you grow, you kind of realize like you want your time back,
Right.
And to have your time, you have to build systems around the work that you're doing and stuff like that. And so I feel like, I mean, you already know that, right? And it's kind of one of those things where I'm like, I could see how quickly you could grow.
Yeah.
Once the workflow comes in, like even heavier, you could be like, all right, well, I am going to duplicate it. You know, have a second me knocking the stuff out.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
great.
and, you know, in oil and gas, in the corporate world, you know, you have an SOP, standard operating procedure.
Right.
You have, you know, business functions, things like that you create. That, you know, whenever you're leaving a role, you pass that on to the next person. Right?
Yeah.
Make their life easier, onboarding and all that. So yeah, absolutely. I think that's, you know, it's very critical. I think you can utilize that in any, you know, aspect of life. You know?
Absolutely.
For
So,
sure.
You know, being able to kind of make that more streamlined. There are certain things, the intangibles, right? Like, you know, it's somebody going to talk to a client with the same level of patience that I can.
Yeah.
Those are the things that, I want to make sure that at least for a while that, you know, I kind of hold on to and make sure that, you know, the business, the reputation is where it needs to be. And
For
all that.
sure.
So yeah, but you know, you just never know which way it can go.
And that makes perfect sense because, you know, once you build your system, then you can focus on the person.
Right.
And say, what is your personality?
Right.
How do you treat people?
Right, exactly.
Right. Are you a good fit for my team? Right. And so that makes perfect sense.
Actually, on that point, I've been reading this book. It's a business development book, right? And it's about if you find the right person that's willing to learn, right? The processes, all that stuff, anybody can learn that, right?
Yeah.
But you can't change the person,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So it's
That's
like
right.
if you're looking for a resource, you find the right hire. It's not always about just what they have on paper. If they're open-minded to learn Paul's processes and Paul's
Right.
SOPs, that's bigger than, you know, somebody that comes in and says, I know everything, right?
And then,
Yeah.
you know, the biggest thing out of that is, you know, somebody can come in and do it better than me. You know, and that's what I want. Right?
That's the ideal situation, right?
And
Yeah.
so, you know, even though, you know, I've done X, Y, Z, somebody can come in and, you know, make it, hey, I have these ideas. So, you know, I always keep that, you know, option open because I worked with some guys that were just geniuses. Right?
Yeah.
You know, they came in and I was like, hey guys, this is what we're going to do. And they're like, oh, what if we did it like this? And they bring their own twist and like, you know, save so much time and just being open-minded, right? Something like that to happen. You just have to be, you know, just be able to, you know, let go and kind of have somebody else.
No, yeah, that's definitely important to have that open mind. You should have your structure, right? I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with having your structure, but also have the door open a little bit to say, hey, man, like, let's hear your ideas and let's figure it out. Since you're in this world, like this mortgage world, you're seeing people buy houses and things like that. Are you in the rental game as well, or do you have any desire to do that, or is that kind of like, no, I'm focusing on the mortgage game?
Yeah, not yet. So I feel like I need to be in the space for maybe 5 years.
Oh, okay.
You know, like solid to then start, you know, venturing out into other options.
Sure.
I like that answer because a lot of people will say, oh, they just started something, they want to start something else. I like that you have the mindset to say, you know what, I need to do this for 5 years, make it the best that I can, grow it, and then boom, pivot out, right? So I think in a lot of businesses, we have friends that own businesses, and that's kind of generally the timeline, right? It's like you're starting something on your own. You want to give yourself at least, you know, 5-6 years to kind of grow and hopefully reach your potential.
Yeah, I mean, give yourself the mental space to be able to focus on this, right? I mean, it makes perfect sense. Yeah, it definitely does.
It could happen sooner, or you know, it could delay a little bit, but you just, you know, that's kind of the average that I'm aiming for at the moment.
No, that's fair.
All right, so if you were to start it all over again, if you lost everything but you know everything, right? So, you know, if you were to do it again, like what would you do differently, or would you do the same? How would you handle that?
Man, that's a good question. Honestly, I think I like my approach, man, because it, you know, there's a lot of unknowns, but it drives me to go find the answers, you know. I think the lack of knowledge and the lack of experience to a certain degree is what's driving me to go out and get it.
Sure.
Because I'm, you know, now I'm certain scenarios that I'm coming across and I'm like, oh yeah, you know, we can do this to kind of, you know, navigate through that. And I'm like, wow, like if you asked me like 6 months ago, I had no idea. But in the mortgage space, there's so many different scenarios.
Yeah.
There's so much information that it's crazy. Like you're always learning something new. But yeah, I don't think I would change anything. I think I would, you know, take this same approach.
That's fair because you touched on there's so many products, and that's true. I think me getting into, I'm sure Saj is probably the same, is like getting into even the investment game. Yeah. Like we didn't realize how many we think, dude, there's the natural or the normal 15 and 30 year products. Yeah. There's so many things in between now, and like things, so many like different things you can do to navigate and get creative, right? And it's just we're learning it as consumers. I'm sure you're probably like, man, there's so many solutions.
Hydrant, right? Even the idea of like doing a cash out refinance or like a recasting your loan, things like that, like all these different things that you would never really know until you're in the game.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so like, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, you're good. It's just amazing to see all the products that are there. So those that are listening in, it's, be open, right? Like if you think one door gets shut,
right,
man, call your man, Paul, Paul will open another door.
Better call Paul. Right?
That's it. That's one of my favorite shows too. I love it.
Nice. Yeah. So, I mean, even the clients that come to me directly, I urge them to shop around right? Because they may find a product better than what I can offer.
Sure.
And every client that I talk to, I tell them, look, you're going to get the best deal, whether it's through me or with somebody else. And I'm going to make sure you do. So I have clients that come, that are building homes.
Oh, sure.
With builders. And they come to me with their estimates and things like that. I'm like, look, this is a game plan. I'm going to offer you what I can, the best what I can.
Right.
And if it's better than what the builders offered, I take it back to them, shop it around.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I tell them, look, shop my numbers around. I don't have a problem doing that because ultimately my goal is to get you a better deal. Yeah. Because, maybe down the line, they may come back for a refinance. They may refer somebody, your friends, families, because I'm like, I had a really good experience with this guy.
Right, right.
So I do that for friends, family, whoever, it's like shop it around. And if they can't beat it, you come back and you get a better deal than what you started with. If they beat my number, then then win-win.
It's still a win-win, right? Yeah.
And they respect that because they see that, oh man, this guy's actually looking out for me,
right?
So I tell people, look, if you're shopping around, which everybody is,
right.
If you want me to break down some of these numbers to you, what other people are sending you, send it to me. I was like, I have no problem telling you, hey, that deal is better. You go take it.
Yeah.
Right.
Let me ask you one last question. Yeah. When you're shopping mortgages around, do you kind of deal with a bunch of different lenders? You have options to, I assume, to kind of go through a gamut of banks and lenders out there that give you better rates. Yeah. Is that kind of the...
So I'm a wholesale broker, which means that I can shop with multiple different banks to get the best product that fits the client's needs. So there's retail bank, retail brokers or retail mortgage, which is, like the banks.
Sure.
Like that. So they're limited to using their products within the bank itself, right? So for me, it's more of, I can shop, if somebody wants an ARM rate, somebody wants, 15 years, somebody wants 30 year, VA, FHA, like all sorts of different products, all sorts of different lenders that offer these, buying down the rate, 2-1 by so many different ways. And I'm not limited to one single person, right? So I can shop it around. And ultimately, that's what gives me the option to get the clients the best deal possible.
Do you only do commercial and residential, or do you just strictly?
Only residential at this point.
Only residential.
Yeah. So we're, sticking with residential for now because commercial is a whole other world.
Yeah. No, it's fair.
Maybe in the future, I have plans on jumping into that, not just yet.
Yeah, no, it's fair. Just like the other thing, like, you want to perfect one thing before you move on to the next. I mean, it makes perfect sense. Yeah. Magic 8 Ball, when are these rates going to drop?
Oh, man, let me think.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
I wish I knew, man. I think, Powell needs to figure out what's going on with inflation.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest driver, right? I think they stopped it. This last one, they said no more rate hikes.
Yeah.
And the market got happy. Rates started coming down. But then he said, there's 2 more in the future that we're, predicting.
Yeah.
And the market started going crazy, like, what's going to happen, right? So I think the understanding in the industry is, within a year or two, the rates, hopefully will come back down to. I have no idea what it's going to come down to. I don't know if it'll ever come down to like the 2% that we had back in 2019.
That's a dream.
That may not ever happen.
Yeah. So I don't think it'll come down to that. I never say never, right?
Right. Yeah.
But hope is to, now I think people are getting used to the rates now. So, you see more people out shopping. But again, everybody can benefit from some lower rates for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So like I'm running under this mindset because I'm not trying to stop buying. Yeah. And to be honest, like it feels like it's an opportunity to negotiate a little bit better, get a better deal on the price with the hope that, hey, if I could afford it at this high rate, in 2 years, whenever the rates do drop, I could refinance and then get a more comfortable payment, right? Yeah. So if you're watching this and you're thinking, oh, the rates are too high, call Paul, get your mortgage, buy the house, buy the house and then refinance later with Paul.
Right, exactly. And that's, the thing is, you hear this all the time, people say, date the rate, marry the house.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's right.
So if you find the right house, rates are temporary.
Yeah.
Or there's so many strategies a lot of people still don't know about, like 2-1 buy down. You ask the seller to contribute to the sale, And you can use that number, their money, to buy
down the
rate.
rate. Yep.
And so you can do 2-1 buy downs where, for example, if the average rate now is 6.5%,
Right.
first year you're paying 4.5%.
Oh.
Second year you're paying 5.5%, then back to where you locked it in for 6.5. So the goal is in the next couple of years, if the rates were to come down, you're paying, you just refinance.
Yeah.
Right? So you start off at 4.5%. Can't beat that.
Yeah.
Dropping bombs, man.
That's awesome, man.
Bombs.
I've heard of it, but no one explained it to me like that, where it's like, oh, wow, you could actually walk into a house right now at 4%,
right?
At least for a year.
Right, exactly.
And then just inch your way back up to that 6.
Right.
And then hopefully by then you're refinanced out.
Exactly. Yeah.
That is awesome.
Definitely have those products, permanent buy downs. You're on like a 5.5 if you wanted to. FHA is another great product. If you don't want to put 20% down, look at FHA options, right?
Right.
See what the rates are on a monthly, see what the monthly basis it's doing, and then see if it makes sense for your situation. And that's what I offer to all my clients. People that come in, they don't want to, somebody just give them one thing and just move on.
Sure.
You want to know that somebody's actually doing some research and figuring out, hey, this could actually benefit you. And that's what I try to offer.
That's awesome because especially as like an investor, like I'm worried about other things.
Right.
And so you're trying to build a team, right?
Right.
And so like a mortgage guy is a part of my team and I want someone on my team to say, hey, I know we're talking about this, but there's another option here that you could do. Or if you pay a little bit more here, you could save on the rate. Or like I need someone else to do that because as the investor, you can't do it all.
Right. Exactly.
And so it's awesome that you're providing that. How difficult is it for you to like write up these term sheets to say, hey, here's option A, B, and C. You get to pick now.
It's not difficult at all. Yeah, I think it should be standard in the industry.
Sure.
And you should be presenting people with multiple options, going through them, through it with them, and they explain to them, hey, this is how I think you can benefit from these options. I think that should be standard. I'm pretty sure a lot of people are doing it, but I've also seen people that don't do it. Give them just one option and like, this is what I got. And I mean, some certain scenarios, that's probably the only option you have.
Sure.
Which is fair.
Yeah.
But I think, you should feel like, the guy, on the other side is actually going to bat for you, which is what I try to, do for my clients.
No, that's awesome, man. Because like what you're preaching is like what I want. That's what I need in my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and like not to knock the mortgage lenders that I use,
Of course.
but at the same time, people in my previous life, like when I first started doing it, it was like, hey, this is just what it is.
Yeah.
And maybe it was like the market was hot and they didn't have to spend the time with me, right? And so now that things are a little bit slower, it's like, oh yeah, let's babysit them a little bit more and give them a little bit more options. Like, so it's good that you're doing that on the front.
Well, it also depends who the lender is, right? If you're buying from a builder, they're a take it or leave it kind of guy. They're like that's their rate, and they're in cahoots with the builder, so they're gonna get this is the rate I have. If you qualify it, you can buy it, right? Or if you can find a guy like Paul, or guys that are willing to, and it also depends on their book of business. If they have a lot of business, they're probably like, yeah, here's your rate,
Right.
No, for sure. I do want to make a note about what you were saying before, as your ability to shop around with multiple banks rather than like an individual going to each bank and doing that stuff. Like that is a time suck.
Of course.
Like, and really, there's no cost to you.
Right.
Like you're not saving money by doing the shopping around yourself.
Right, exactly.
And so like that's a benefit that a mortgage broker would bring. So if you're considering that, but did you have additional thoughts on that?
Absolutely. So, my process, I always tell, realtors, shoppers, the whole every time I have a conversation with them, look, when you initially come to me asking for rates, I offer what's called, it's a soft credit pool where there's no impact to your credit score, but I can still see pretty much all your liabilities, pretty much work up your entire file and say, hey, this is what, your situation is, and this is what you qualify for. This is what we can do to improve your credit score, whatever you need, right? And it's a full, thorough review of your scenario. I mean, obviously, there are certain underwriting things that, we may not see initially, but it's a pretty good understanding of, what your scenario is. And based off of that, you can literally like build a fee estimate for them.
Nice.
Like, hey, this is what is, your number is based off of today's market. Some people just, like, oh, what's your estimated credit score on, Credit Karma? Oh, okay, how much do you make? Oh, okay, cool. Here, here you go.
Here's a rough number.
Right. And, you don't know what their debt to income scenario is.
Right.
You don't know, what liabilities they have. And, you're not doing them a favor. If you're doing that, just stop, right?
Yeah.
Come on, just be a little more, just
be real.
Yeah, be real with that. So do your due diligence and make sure you shop right. And I tell clients, look, you come to me, I'll give you this. You don't have to run your credit. You preserve your credit score until you're ready to move forward. Some people are building, or some people are just starting their shopping.
Sure.
Preserve your credit. Just do this, and and then when you're ready to move forward, then you can run a hard inquiry and whatnot.
Right.
But the biggest thing is, there's no risk, in what I do, right?
Right.
For the clients, there's no risk for them to come to me and say, hey, what are their numbers? Here's my file.
Right.
What does it look like? And then they get a fee estimate, and they can go shop it around, try to get a better deal, And then I'll tell you, like 90% of the time they come back and say, man, nobody can beat your numbers.
All right.
So let's move forward.
That's
So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. We're taking up a lot of your time, man. So I apologize. But before we wrap things up, how can people connect with you? Like, do you have handles that you want to share? Or we could definitely put it on the show notes, but if you want to share it now, that'd be great.
Yeah.
He has handles above his lip.
Right? These right here. Yeah. TMT Mortgage on Instagram. I give everybody my cell phone number. Wow. Right? I have people calling me, all times of the day, weekends, evenings, which is needed in this industry.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
My email has my, cell phone number on there. If you guys want to find me on Instagram, shoot me a DM, shoot me an email at paul@tmtmortgagegroup.com or my website, tmtmortgagegroup.com. And yeah, that's it's all there, man. I'm easily available.
Very cool, man. I don't think we've spoken a lot in detail about the mortgage side,
we
which
haven't.
again, it's cool to have your perspective. And thank you again for the time. And I think hopefully it enlightened a lot of our listeners. So thanks for joining if you made it this far in the podcast. And, Saj would always say, like and subscribe to our podcast. And, hopefully.
It's free, okay? You're watching
It
and
doesn't
listening to
cost
this
you
for
anything.
free. So just give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Share it with your friends. But more importantly, make comments. We want to know what you're thinking.
Absolutely.
If you have questions, we'll rope Paul back in. If he could answer them for you. All of his information we'll put in the show notes, so make it easier for you to reach out to him. As Sid was saying, thank you. Thanks for watching. Paul, thanks for being here. We really appreciate your big muscles and beautiful mustache. And I guess we're signing off. Guts and Grind, Sidhu Sajan, Paul.
Thanks for having me, guys.
In the flesh.
Later, y'all.
Thanks for listening to Guts and Grind with Sidhu and Sajan. Be sure to tune in next time.